Hey all you addicts out there, welcome back to another Addicted Fishing tutorial. I'm Jordan Carnegie, and today we're out here on the river. We're talking one of the oldest school tricks in the book here in the Northwest, and it's catching salmon and steelhead in the summertime on little coon shrimp. So we're gonna go through and show you guys from start to finish, rod, reel, line, all the way down to how to rig up your coon shrimp to drift and float fish these coon shrimp here in the Northwest on these beautiful rivers or anywhere in the world. So stay tuned, you guys are gonna love what you see today. What we're gonna start with here today, guys, is we're gonna talk about our float rod. Really, it doesn't matter what brand you have, what kind. I like the Okuma Guide Select Pros. I like them in the 9.9 or the 10.6. What I really like that for is because on these summer steelhead rivers, a lot of these rivers are a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, and you wanna be able to mend your line correctly with this float fishing. If you're using a short rod and you're leaving too much line on the water as you're doing these drifts down these beautiful tail outs, what happens a lot of time is you get that big amount of drag on your line that pulls your gear right up off the bottom, whether you know it or not. It looks like you're fishing, but you're really not. So having a long rod to be able to stay high up in the air and keep a lot of that line managed and off the water is crucial in fishing these coon shrimp because they are a very delicate presentation. So what I have this lined with is 30-pound P-line TCB, Teflon coated braid. I like it a lot because it mends, again, very nicely. It stays on top of the surface of the water. You can go into the 40s, into the 50-pound. Both actually work even a little bit better for keeping your line out of the water as you're making a long drift. The key is with that Teflon coated braided is just to be able to have that line float on the surface. You don't want a line or like a monofilament line that's not greased where you can't get the line up out of the water to make your mends at a long distance because you're going to want to extend these drifts as long as possible. So from there, I'm going to go on up to my bumper that I always tie. I'm going to go with a 20-pound P-line fluoro. If you're fishing very clear water, you can bump it down to like the 12 SS for your bumper leader. I use the 12 SS for my tippet leader or for my leader line as well. So you can go 12 and 12, or if you have a place where you have some colored up water or the fish really don't mind that or aren't that line shy, you can go with that 20-pound tactical, which is my favorite to use for that bumper. So I tie that together with a blood knot or a uni or a slim beauty or whatever kind of knot that you want to do to get those together. You can find those on our YouTube channel, giving some tutorials there. Go down to a Bomac bobber stop, just this little red guy here. It's just this little bobber stop here. I like these because they're real sleek. They go through the guides very well and they never really get tangled or worn out. They might get a little dry in the summertime. On that note, one crucial thing I'll say when fishing in the summertime, a little side note to all this, is really keep your line conditioned. Whether it be your float line, whether it be your leader line, don't go out to the river and the hardest thing on this line is the sun. It's not so much the abrasion or the use of it in the water, it's the sun hitting it that wears it out the fastest. So check those uni knots and check those knots that where you connect that bumper and that floor, or that your bumper and your braided line, so that you're not wearing it out, and when you finally do hook a fish, it's gonna break off instantly because that line's so worn out from the sun. So I go down to the Bomac bobber stop, I use a little yellow bead right here, just a little orange bead so that I can make sure I'm fishing every time. That thing slides right down to the top of my float. Any kind of float works if you want to use the Bomac or so on and so forth. Right in the ½ ounce range works well. Unless you're fishing a very small stream, then you can go even smaller and bump it down to whatever you need. But I'm going with a ½ ounce clear drift right down to a barrel swivel. And what I'm doing here is a little bit different than I've showed you guys before, and a little bit different than even what I do, but it's a trick that I use a little bit more in the summertime, and it's because we're not fishing as heavy a water. In wintertime, we're fishing a lot of big, heavy currents, a lot of high water situations. And when we're doing this here, in the summertime, you're fishing a lot of shallow, riffly, slow spots that you don't need a lot of weight. You want it to drift through there naturally and slowly, but not be dragging on the bottom too hard. So what I do in the summertime is I tie a little piece of line to that swivel, and then I actually just use split shot. I just use your normal number 7 split shot. You can use smaller or you can use bigger and use less or more, but what I use is just a split shot, and what I can really do with that is extremely control my depth. I can keep a pocket full of split shot, and I can be able to go in and add or take weight off depending on whether I'm at the top of the run or down at the tail out. It's one of the quickest ways and easiest ways that I've found getting weight on and off, especially in a nice light current situation like we have in the summertime in most places. So I have that tied off just with a little piece of extra line I had floating around the boat, and that way if I do get snagged, those just slide off, I put my weight back on, I don't lose the rest of my setup. The Dave's Tangle Free, a piece of pencil lead, anything like that will work just fine, but this is a little trick that I've been using lately that I like a lot. So from me to you, there you go. What we're going to go to next is our leader length. It's arguable in many different directions. Some people would only use about a 1 foot leader, depending on where you're fishing. Again, it's really going to dictate what kind of leader setup you're using, but some people would just tie a 2 to 3 foot normal leader with this number 2 bait hook off of their weight, and they'd side drift that and they'd drag it down the bottom and they'd let it float. What I like to do is almost a little bit more of a bead presentation for these coon shrimp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use about a 5 foot leader, kind of about the same length as you want to use for a bead. I'm going to go about 5.5 feet here. And this is the 12-pound SS fluorocarbon. You can go lighter. If you need to go down to the 10, you need to go down to 8, depending on what river you're fishing. But I've found this SS is clear enough that it really doesn't matter in a lot of situations. The fish don't seem to be very line shy to it. I think it's just that clear in the river. So I'm gonna go and tie my normal clinch knot here just because we're being quick and easy, and it works just fine. I'm gonna tie that down, trim my end off. From here, I'm gonna take that bit of leader I have, about 5 feet, and I'm gonna add a little bead. It's not necessary to add a bead or a soft egg or whatever you want, but I like to run a bead or a corky with my coon shrimp. It just adds that little extra eye flare for them. They can see it coming. It lets them identify that coon shrimp, and it seems like, to me, it's like he's eating a little morsel going down. It's a double whammy for him. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this is just a little 8 mil bead. You can go up to the 10s, 12s, 14s if you need be, but I'm just using the 8 today. And I'm gonna keep that right above my coon shrimp. So what we have here is these Mustad size 2 bait hooks. I really like these. The shape is really fishy. I mean, it holds on to fish well, and they have a good weight to them. You can go down to the more finesse or the fine wire hooks that they make also if you're doing more of a side drifting presentation. I don't mind these hooks for using some kind of like eggs or bait or like coon shrimp, because the weight of the hook doesn't necessarily seem to affect the presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead, show you guys how to tie a little egg loop on here. Best way to keep these coon shrimp on the hook is with an egg loop, whether you tie it a multitude of ways, however you want to do it, but this is how I tie my egg loop. I'm just going to take the line, I'm going to run it straight through the eye and lay it right along the bar, and I'm going to hold that with my left hand, having the tag end sticking out to the left. So I'm going to lift that up, I'm going to create a bow, and I'm going to hold it again with that left finger, holding that line right against the shank there. From here, I'm gonna do 8 to 10 wraps, 7 wraps, whatever your lucky number is that day. I'm gonna go ahead and keep overhand over about 7 times. 8. I'm gonna go quite a few here just because. And then I'm gonna take that tag end that I've just wrapped around the shank of the hook, and I'm gonna stick it back through the eye that I created with my left finger. So then I'm gonna grab that with my mouth, pull the main line tight, and there you have it. A perfect little egg loop on there. And again, you can keep going on your wraps. You can do them a little bit less, a little bit more, depends on how many wraps you want on there, how much you want that to slide around. But the beauty of this blood knot to me is that I can move that knot up and down the shank of the hook. So if I want to put more bait, less bait, if I want that to stay further back on the shank, or so on and so forth, I have that ability to move that bait loop around and be able to put my bait back on every time. So I'm gonna trim my little tag end here. And what I do, you guys can peg these with any of the Brad's bead pegs or a toothpick or anything, but when I'm using these 8 mils and I have this 12 SS, when I'm able to use it, I just do a couple overhand knots, an old Alaska trick. Just overhand knot around that hook 2 or 3 times, slide it down, and that's gonna hold that bead. I'm probably gonna wanna go a little further with it, but that's gonna hold that bead right in place there. And I found, I mean, it seems a little sketchy, but we all watched The Addicted Life where I caught a 20-pound steelhead. I caught it doing that. So with that SS line, if it's untattered, it's not torn up and it's not abrased at all, it holds quite a bit on that little loop knot like that. We call it a bead knot. And it works just fine. So you can use a peg, you can use a toothpick, do whatever you'd like, but that's what I'm doing here today. So here we go. Our coonies. What we have here is our millennial coon shrimp. They're some partners of ours, and they make a beautiful dry brine coon shrimp. The beauty of the dry brine is that really, a lot of times when you brine these at home and you add different dyes to them, they become very toxic to your fingers. They work great, but what happens is they dye everything that you touch, your clothes, your hands, everything. But the beauty of this is it's no dye, so they don't stain your fingers, they don't get you all nasty, and they're perfect little coon shrimp. They also make prawns as well, cured prawns. So coon shrimp are again, one of the most effective things for these summer steelhead. Couldn't tell you why. I think a lot of it is what their food base is in the ocean. They're chasing these little coonies around from the tiny little smolts all the way up to where they're returning adults. So I think that it's something that they really identify well with, and it has a lot of scent, really natural presentation, and honestly, this either the orange or the bright reds or the purples or the colors really match the scheme that we're going for on these steelhead too. So what I'm gonna do here, I got my coonie, I'm gonna rig it up to my hook here. This is kind of why we're using such a big hook here, like we talked about before. But what I'm gonna do is go through the tail first and then into the head and roll this coon shrimp around. And why I'm gonna go into the tail first through the back is so that this tail lays against the shank of my hook and I can use that bait loop to hold that tail down. And that's what's crucial, because a lot of times as you're fishing, the head will come off. Even if you get a bite, half that coon shrimp will come off, but that bait loop will hold on to the main meaty part of that tail, and it'll allow you to keep fishing with that bait and not have to be putting a new shrimp on every 20 minutes, or heck, every 20 seconds at sometimes. So these are nice and firm here. I'm gonna go right through that, right through the top of his head there, just like so. And again, this is a delicate operation here. I'm gonna slide that nice and slow all the way up. I'm gonna wrap that bait loop around that little guy's tail, just like so. And I'm gonna just gently hold that on there. You don't even need to pull it tight. As long as that's secure, as you cast and you drift it down the river, that's gonna be holding it tight. So there's your bait. I can tell why they'd wanna eat it. I kinda wanna eat it right now. Just give me some cocktail sauce. We got this bead setting up right here. You'd like to have that a few inches away. With this size 6 or 8 mil beads, it's not really gonna matter as much that it's pegged that 3 or 4 finger length. But here's another little trick I'm gonna show you guys. And this is probably one of the most important parts in having this long leader length for me. And it's really why I'm doing this, is to make it so I don't have to regulate my depth as much. When I have clients, it's hard to be telling them to keep moving their bobber stops up and down, but as fishermen, you should be moving your depth constantly from the top to the bottom of the hole, trying to find bottom, trying to get that perfect drift. Sometimes you're too deep, sometimes you're too shallow. That's why I'm gonna be able to adjust with my split shot here, but what I'm gonna do on my main line here is I'm gonna take a number 4 split shot, excuse me, number 8 split shot, just a little guy here. Doesn't matter if it's the rounded one or if it has the tag ends on it. To me, I don't really care much. I'm gonna put that exactly, I like to line up the shrimp with my main weight, and I put that split shot exactly in the middle of that leader line. And what that's gonna do is allow my coon shrimp to be fishing even if I'm not at the right depth. If I'm fishing too shallow or too deep, it's gonna sit and it's gonna allow that presentation to go down the bottom of the river and keep fishing no matter what depth I'm at, or no matter what part of the hole I'm at. And even if you're fishing in a spot that you're too shallow, that split shot's gonna go down. It's gonna allow you, that coon shrimp, to get down towards the bottom and get you an effective presentation. So there you have it, everybody. This is what a properly set up, in my opinion. Again, everybody's got their own opinion, so be sure and comment below on what you guys like to set these coon shrimp up like, of course, but this is, in my opinion, the best way to set these coon shrimp up. It allows you to keep fishing through multitudes of water. Really, it's very effective. It's, again, the most natural presentation you can pretty much get out here in the summertime on these beautiful rivers. So the last but not least, the beauty of these coon shrimp and why I like to use them so much is you can really fish these in every kind of water on the river. Whether it be a long, beautiful tail out like we have behind us, a deep, slow moving pool that you really would have a hard time fishing with anything else, or even rapids floating down in the middle of white water and throughout the fast spots in the river, you're able to fish this coon shrimp like a bead or like an egg presentation and allow them to kind of key in on that natural aggression of feeding on shrimp like all steelhead do, and cover every bit of water on the river, whether you be side drifting it, whether you be throwing it under a float. Really, that's all I got for you guys today. This is how you set it up. These are the millennial coon shrimp. I'd recommend finding these anywhere. I believe they have them at Sportsman's Warehouse, different places around the Northwest, but they're wonderful coon shrimp. If you guys have any questions, be sure and comment below. We want to see your questions. We want to be able to answer anything that we missed here today. We want to be able to help you out to allow you guys to come out here and catch these awesome fish here in the summertime. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys like what you saw today, be sure and go and subscribe to our channel. Like and share this page out there so that everybody can learn how to do this beautiful, awesome recreation that we have in the Northwest called fishing, or anywhere in the world. So share it out there. Be sure and subscribe, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay fishy, and we'll see you on the river.